All right, YouTube, let me pop this out real quick. Okay. Hi, this is John with Graybeard 3D. I'm continuing this Railcore build. I finished putting the panels on the Railcore, and now I'm looking at getting all the pulleys and the carriages put together. That's probably what I'm going to just focus on right now, is just the carriage parts, and then go ahead and stop this stream and look at doing another stream another time. However, this should be pretty informative, especially if you receive the aluminum parts and you want to put them together, because I've found a few things I think need a little bit more information on in the instructions. So hopefully this helps you out too. Let me go ahead and switch over to that. So as I said, let's go ahead and get started and start working through some of this. So here's my kind of work area here. I don't need that here. And what we're going to be building, I've already built one set of these, and I did that because I needed to work out a few issues with it. But what we're going to do is build the other set, and then that way you can see how it gets built. And then we'll probably put these on the rails. We'll put the mount for the hot end also on the rail, and get everything kind of going here. So let's go ahead and see what we have here. Let me switch to my instructions and set up my chat. Hi Chris, how you doing? Welcome. And I know Country has a live stream going on right now too, but unfortunately this is the best time for me right now. Just working out times to do this without interfering too much with my wife's schedule. All right, so as I said, we'll start here. As I said, we've already started with this one. I'm going to build the front one though for you, so you can see how it is. This has all the parts in it except for this thing, which is like a little spacer. The spacer goes right in here. Yeah, I'm doing well, Chris. It's been a heck of a day, but doing pretty well. So this spacer goes in, and then one of these really thin shims go in too. But you can't really put these in until you put them on the rail. Otherwise, they just fall out. So let me continue on here. So for the front one, and this is what we're building. For the front one, we're doing the same thing, but we're doing opposite, meaning we're putting the toothed version on top and the smooth one on bottom. So here's the front, and let me get the orientation right. So there's the front one, and let me switch over to OBS so I can keep this on screen for you. So I did a lot of experimentation with the spacing and how many washers and whatnot on this. And what I found out is with these aluminum ones, you're either using a combination of these shims. Make sure that shows up on screen. This shim is exactly 0.4 millimeters, or you use one of these washers. And these washers, I've measured a few. These are standard M5 washers, I believe. Let me check the package. Yeah, these are standard M5 washers. They're either they're somewhere between like a 0.94 to a 1 millimeter thickness. So there's some variances in there. So it's going to be a little bit thicker than two shims. So with that, I've done a bunch of different testing on how to get this so it would still turn, but at the same time there should be no movement up and down. And if there's any in here, it's less than 0.2 millimeters, which is not something I can easily work out unless I specifically go and find some thicker washers. So with that, we'll start with one of these M5 shoulder bolts. These bolts are going to be different than what you would use if you use the printed part. If you use the printed part, you're going to have a completely different design there, because you're not going to be able to thread that little bit into plastic without it falling out. So let's go ahead and get this started. So the design I came up with, or the spacing I came up with, is basically a washer, an idler, a washer, an idler, and a washer. So that's all we're doing here. And since we're doing opposite the back one, we're starting with the toothed one. So we have a washer in that, and then we're going to do another washer. And I lost my chat window. Andreas, how are you doing? Thank you for joining. And then we'll put the smooth one on. And one more washer. After you do all that, because some of these can vary some, you're going to want to mount it onto the block. And when you mount it on the block, you want to be very careful not to cross thread it. But you want to mount it on the block and make sure that the wheels can still turn. So let me get that tight. Yeah, so right now they're not turning. So for this side, it seems like it's slightly different than the other one, and it could simply be weird variances in the washers. And in this case, what I'm going to do is put spacers at the top instead of the washer. So if you need some room, you don't necessarily want to change the spacer at the bottom because you want to match, but you can use the shims at the top instead, and that doesn't change your spacing at all. So instead of the washer up here, I'm going to do 2 shims. And by doing these shims, this is going to save me somewhere between 0.16 millimeters and 0.2 millimeters. And that difference there should make up for the being overly tight. So there I have that, and I have another washer. I have the smooth idler, and then I have another washer. Now we'll try this one. And this has been more or less a trial and error type of process. And if you look at the instructions that they give you, they even mention, you know, with some of the shims, they say use 1 or 2. Okay, so that's really nice. Make sure it's tight. Yeah, and there's no wiggling. So switching out from a washer to 2 shims, cut back about 0.16 millimeters, and that was enough to allow it to turn. So the next thing we need in here is a 16 millimeter shoulder bolt, or not shoulder bolt, button head. So we'll go ahead and throw that in there. And this is what's going to depress one of the spacers. And when it's going in, you want to make sure that it's not cross-threaded or anything like that. So YouTube's a little bit annoying. Okay, there we go. And we should see that it will come through the other side there. There, you see it coming through. We'll back it off for now. What this is going to do is press on one of these spacers here, and it's going to press that spacer against the rail. I assume we're using spacers just so we don't damage the rail. That might be the only real reason. I don't know. Maybe somebody else knows. And then on the bottom here, we want a 10 millimeter button head. And let me make sure this is the 10. I've had a lot of different screws out today. So 10 millimeter button head right down here on the bottom. Go ahead and get that started, and we'll put that in. And again, this is pressing on the rail as well. So we're hitting the rail from 2 sides. And you see it'll come through the top here, but we don't need it all the way through right now. Okay, so that is done there. So we have almost 2 matching ones. The thing about these is they do have the engraving that says Manila Roseworks, but they also at the top have either front or back, and you want to look for that. So one says back, one says front. And that's going to depend on, you know, which one gets the smooth and which one gets the toothed idler at the top. So let's see what else is happening here. All right, so we have those. So it looks like, you know, in the next step they put it on a rail. So we can do that. So I have a rail here. This is what I'm going to use. And with that, they say to face the engravings toward the inside of the printer. So we're facing the engraving like that. And inside of this is where we want to get our spacers, such as this disc. So we'll get that slid in there. And right now I'm not really going to make this super tight. I just want it to start to grab. And that's why that won't turn for me. Okay, so you can see it. It's like I need a third monitor. So that's the spacer and the rail that you can see in there. So there we have the rail, and there we have the spacer. Now we need to add another spacer. So we have the screw up here, and it's going to press on the rail right there, but we need to fit a spacer in there. And these are just really thin cut pieces of metal. It looks like they were cut with shears. And we just really need to get one in there. So let me see what I can do. I'm sorry, it'll probably be off screen here. All right, might have to loosen up the 16 real quick so I can adjust the positioning. I don't want to loosen it up so much that the other spacer falls out. I just want to loosen it up enough to fit this new one. And that just went right through. This is going to be tricky, guys. So we're dealing with this super thin piece of metal that just wants to fall out. Alright, so I felt the screw make a contact. I'm just going to validate that the screw is on the spacer and not pressing on the rail. It looks like the spacer could move a little bit upward, so I'm going to see if I can press it with this, and it seems like my screw might be a little too tight. Loosen it up a little, and it's still too tight. Let me find a flathead. So I have this flathead here. Just trying to get this more centered. It's not super important, as far as I can tell, to have it centered, but I just want it. And that went too far. So, yeah, it appears part of my problem is it is reacting to some of the magnetism that might be stuck on my tools. So, let me see. I think I have it. Maybe I don't. This thing, these little tabs are quite a pain. Okay, so I'll go with that. Oh, let me get my chat window back up. All right, so I have that in there. I have the, well, I should have this at the very end here. and I should put the 16mm tight again. So, okay, we'll do the other side. And for right now, I am leaving these zip ties on. Have you built one of those before? So before I started the stream, I built one of these, and I built one of these, but that was it. And so on this stream, I'm going to show building the other one, which is the same process, including kind of experimenting some with the actual number of spacers and shims and whatnot. So first I'm starting with getting the round spacer in here. I want it so the spacer won't fall out, but it doesn't necessarily have to be gripping right now, because the next one I need to get in is this pain in the butt little piece of metal. This is my first Railcore, if that's what you were asking. And let me try to... So this shim would help a lot if it was at least close to the width of the metal part. Because if it was that, then this would be a lot easier to align, because you could actually reach it with your finger. Using these metal tools, I'm ending up pushing it. I'm at the end there, so just making sure I'm at the end there. Yeah, so this is my first Railcore. The what other printers have I built? My first printer I built was a what's it called? It's called Maker Farm. It was a while ago. It was a wooden printer from, I think it's called Maker Farm or something like that. And that was, back then it was a really affordable printer. And then, you know, I've put together some of the Chinese printers that are usually only a couple screws. And then, what else did I put together? A bunch of Prusas. So, but yeah, this is a little bit more complicated, I want to say, than the Prusas. Okay, so right now it looks like let's see, we have, if I line it up with what the picture looks like, it looks like I have built it correctly there. And I'm going to clip these zip ties off. Cool. All right. Let's see. I'm going to cheat a little bit. The instructions have you go on to do some other stuff. Yeah, this is the biggest printer for sure. Now the kind of, I've built a Shape Oko, which, so it's you know, it's similar type of design. Similar type of design on the Shape Oko, but it's obviously a CNC, but it is a very large area that it covers. So it is a bit different. So right now I'm just looking through the instructions because I know that there's a Y carriage section, and that's what this is. So this is the Y carriage here. And I think this is the Y carriage. Who knows? This is the part we're on. So this sits on here like this. Obviously with the thick side up with these. And we just want to get this mounted. So right now it uses the M3/8s, which are the short little button heads. Yeah, this will be the largest printer I've ever owned. So actually holding it on that carriage is not helping. So the 4 holes where we didn't put anything, didn't put any of the heat sets, are what get the 8s. So, and the tolerances seem tight enough where it actually threads in. So we should just get them all started. And I'm having the same problem I had before with this driver. Being a ball head driver, it's not very good for this. While it's good for other things, keeping the screw in a straight line while you're trying to get it in is tricky. And come on, I don't like it going in there sideways. There we go. Had a huge branch from my tree fall down today. Hit the neighbor's deck. It looks like it didn't cause any damage though. Alright, come on, guy. It seems like it's about to storm. So I'm just getting these started. I'm not putting them all the way in. I'm just getting them to the back here. And then that way I can mount them. Just like that. And hopefully find the hole on the back side. I'll start with the little one. Chris, have you built the Railcore yet? Okay. Cool stuff. All right. Now, they normally have you put this on while this is already mounted to the printer. I figure this is actually easier to kind of put some of this stuff together now, because it would really be the next step after you put this in the printer, and I don't see what putting it on now does other than possibly makes this easier. So now they want the BL Touch built to mount to this. So let me set that aside. I have this, and I have a BL Touch. With the BL Touch, they want the M3x20s inserted like that, and then they want you to use some of the heat sets. Now I ran out of the heat sets in the kit, so I have some extras, but they are slightly different. Hopefully it's still good enough. So they're using these heat inserts as spacers. Kind of wish we just had some 3D printed spacers or something, but. And then from there, let's see the orientation. Have it oriented like, boom, 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 boom. Sorry, just making sure I get it right. Looks like they have it oriented like so. See, that's a problem right there. So with the heat sets the way they are, and then the thread's too tight to slide into the printed part. I'm gonna have to do this kind of slow here. They also suggest putting a piece of belt right here for a dampener. I don't have a piece of belt yet because I haven't mounted the belt. I could assume I'll have extra and just cut it, but I'm a little nervous about that. So I'll probably come back and just put belt on later. This is getting tight. I think I'm going to do this another way. I'm going to move the heat sets this way. Again, if this thing wasn't threaded, this would be, if these spacers weren't threaded, this would be easier. Alright, we'll do it like that. Yeah, that's a lot easier. Almost in there. Okay, and on top of that they want some nuts. Now the BL Touch did come with springs, which I thought would make a good dampener, so I did see if the springs would work out well here, but by putting them where these spacers are. But it actually had a lot of movement this way, which I didn't like. The springs are really tight, but they still had a lot of movement. So I'm not sure if we do anything with the springs. And let's do this. Cool. We have a BL Touch. Hi, John. How are you? Thank you for joining. Okay. So this guy is getting mounted right here, and I think these are the M38s again. So grab some M38s. Try to line that up while keeping everything on camera. All right. Okay, they want the end stop mounted. Day of training for what? What are you training for? So this is the Y end stop holder. The end stop is part of the, I think it's part of like the wiring bundle, so we won't have that for a while, but we get that in place now though, at least the holder. Oops, I am doing that upside down. This little L thing goes up, so I gotta flip the screws around. Yeah, this kit is the Alien 3D Railcore kit, which is still sourced and shipped by Project R3D. So really what it is it's a kit from Project R3D that has some very nice components picked out. Oh, okay, the quilting machine. Yeah, I remember that on the live stream the other day. Okay. Next piece that goes on here is this one. This ends up holding the... Am I on screen before I keep talking about this? Yeah, okay. This ends up holding the motor for the Bondtech and everything else. I looked at other orientations and it just didn't seem to line up with anything but this configuration. The instructions don't show this guy. It shows a slightly different one. So alright, let me try. Let me get the screw in there. There we go. Wow, that's a lot of training. Is it too tight? I think the printed piece is just slightly warped because it fits there, but it bows out some. Come on, I don't want this to cross thread. Alright, try this hole first. I'm fighting the warp right now with this part. Hopefully the warp doesn't really hurt it. And now this screw should fit. Okay. Are there a lot of channels about embroidery and quilting already? There are a lot of popular YouTube ones. Like that might give you an idea of, you know, what's being covered already and where what you could show people or what people would want to watch for you. It's one reason I'm doing the Railcore is like I don't think there's enough videos of the Railcore build, especially with kind of like all the possibilities out there for it, the variations you can do and everything. So I felt doing one for the Alien 3D one was good because it has a very specific set of upgrades. So there's another screw back here. Just try and get that screw started too. And hopefully that handles any kind of warp that we might have. Okay. We have all that. What's next? Have all that. So now we have this mount. This is the E3D groove mount style. And that fits, let's see, that fits like that. And it uses more of these little screws here. So I'll get the first one started. Oh yeah. Okay, so you're looking at giving information that others would normally pay for a class to receive. That could be very good for, yeah, that could be very valuable. And just turn that around so you guys can see it easier. Yeah, I like that this uses the metal groove mount instead of a plastic groove mount. It should be a lot nicer. And now I'm just going to check some of these and make sure that we're all cinched up. Cool. All right, we might be done with this assembly here. Yeah, I think we're done with this assembly. So the next thing this whole assembly does, let's see if I can zoom out. And I did skip around a little bit because normally you put the Y on after you put it in the printer, but I figured that kind of building this out just like this off the printer might make a few things a little bit easier for me. And it really should not affect putting it into the printer. So I will find out. I might end up, eating my own words with that. So we'll see. So the next thing I gotta do is build another one of these. Let me make sure I have the right side. So the right side has the engraving on it. And one says front. Let me see if I can get that on. So right there it says front idler, and this one says rear idler. So always check your parts and line it up with the instructions there. So I'm going to skip back to that. And get to this one. So like before, this is going to be kind of like an opposite thing. Actually, it looks like the same. Oh, I see what the oppositeness is. All right, so right here, how this one has the spacer here, on this one, the spacer goes to the inside one. So actually, I'm going to orient it just like it is in the picture. With these, with the spacings, I use the printed spacer that they give. Where is the other spacer? Yeah. So I have the printed spacer they give. The short one uses a 10mm bolt, and the tall one uses the 20mm shoulder bolt. We need 2 of these. Is this all on screen? Yeah. So we need 2 of these, and it looks like I did a washer for that, and for the bottom one I ended up using 3 shims. These shims, as I said, are 0.4mm. So alright, so for this one I'm going to take the this is the opposite one. For this one over here, which is the short one, I'm going to take this, I'm going to put one of these toothed idlers on it, and 3 shims. See if that works out. Now the pain with these shims, because there's kind of not enough shoulder on that bolt, is just making sure they're set in there right, or when you tighten down the bolt, it's not going to set flat on the surface of the metal, and so you want to be very careful with that. The other thing you want to be very careful of is cross-threading. So for this specific job, and because the aluminum is really soft, I'm not using a ball end, I'm using a straight end. And then that's going to help keep it from cross-threading at all. The other thing I'm going to do, let me lift this up a little bit, is let gravity help me with these shims so they don't kind of get caught between the screw and the body of the holder. And we're just going to turn this. And then we're going to visually inspect to make sure that they're in there, and we're going to see if it turns. And it does turn. So that's good. Good to go. Now let's do the other one. So the other one should be, let's see, first one of these. Then it looks like I did a washer and this spacer. Now, if for some reason you need to put a shim in here, you want to put it above this, because what we're trying to do is make sure that the gap here is consistent with the gap that we used on these blocks, because the gap between those two idlers is exactly one washer, which is 1 millimeter. So we want to make sure we continue to do that. And that's where I found the directions were a little bit goofy. Let me make sure my chat's up. Get some dinner. Hey Toxic, how's it going? All right, so tighten this down. Let me see, get on camera for you. Make sure it still turns, and it does. And you also want to make sure that there's no real movement in this direction. So, feels good. And kind of visually check that. So, this side, the spacer's on the inside. This is the front idler, and this is the rear idler, and the spacer's on the outside. So there we go. Let's see what we have next here. Perfect. Just double checking things with every diagram that we have. Okay, next is to mount those, which we'll do in a minute. I just want to kind of prep everything else. The other thing I want to do is kind of pre-bolt the motors. So I have the carriages for the holders for the motors, and I have the two motors. Now the kit, if you bought the kit, these motors are the E3D ones and the thicker ones. So the kit comes with a thinner E3D, that's for the extruder, and it comes with 3 other motors for the Z, but they're not black, they're silver, and they're not E3D. So, all right. When these mount on top of the printer, this is toward the outside edge, and this is going into or inside edge, and so you want your wiring facing inward, in toward the control box. I understand that might be a little hard to visualize, and let's see. And then it does mount with the M3x8 button head bolts. So those are going to go in here. Oh, you know, I think I have a straight one of these, and I don't know why I don't have it with me. I should go get it. Nope. Yeah, I really should go get it. There we go. Now these have a groove cut out. You want to make sure that that's facing the motor. That's not specifically mentioned in the instructions, I don't think, at all. So, and one other thing I do want to point out, it does say, this says rear mount, this one says front mount, and it says it right down there. All right, I don't want to tighten that fully. And I'm going to mount all these pieces we've pre-assembled onto the frame and probably call it a night. But I just wanted to get kind of all these little bits done. Come on. So I did notice that the way these are cut, here I'll show you. The way these are cut, they probably could use some improvement, because this is me pressing the motor all the way down, but you can see it's off center. I need to make sure that's showing up on screen for y'all. So you can see the holes are very close to the top edge there, and that's with me pressing the motor as far down as I can get it. So it seems like it needs a little bit of an adjustment there, 0.5 millimeter down maybe on all those holes. Yeah, and it shouldn't be off, out of alignment at all, because of the way the CNC works. It should have been aligned to the part. So it definitely makes it harder to get some of these screws in. Ugh, I over-tightened. I don't even know if that's the right alignment. Hold on. Yeah, that's right. Maybe they did it on purpose. I don't know. So the button head grabs a little bit more on one side. I don't know. So that one's not too bad. I think this one's a lot worse. So it is definitely slightly off. This one definitely doesn't want to go for me. Come on. Okay. So. Yeah, so the motor isn't centered in extrusion down there, and it's mostly because these are not quite right. So from there, I wonder where that went. Who knows? Okay, let me clean up these shims. I'm going to go ahead and get the printer back on the table and mount these parts to it, and then wrap up. Save as many of these shims as I can. The motors get these things too. Let me see. What was it? So I did not thread lock my frame bolts. I thought about it, and I don't know. I thread locked a few things though. Some aluminum parts that I had to construct. Let me see if I have, like, I didn't construct these. I constructed other aluminum parts, but I did end up thread locking some of these, and I noticed that. So they built this for you. But there's a lot of wiggle room with those heads of the bolts, and I noticed that some of them were kind of off kilter. So I ended up loosening the bolts and making sure that this was flush in the front, and then tighten the bolts back down. But these were pre-built for me, so you still want to check these parts when they're pre-built. You want to make sure that it's smooth between them, and I don't know if you can see that gap there, but that's one of the things I did kind of adjust. So let me see, where is, they do tell you which way to put these darn pulleys. The front pulley has the teeth to the bottom, and the rear pulley has the teeth to the top. This is critical. So this is the front pulley, so teeth to the bottom. And back pulley gets teeth to the top. And is this the right size for this? Yeah. There we go. And I'm not going to snug these up. I'm just going to just put a little bit on it so it stays in place. I'm aligning one of the grub screws with the flat. There. So the rear teeth up and the front teeth down. So let me go get the printer. Let me clean up some of this a little bit. Boom. The kit's really nice. They make it easy to get to those frame screws. So those particular screws you can get to later if you want to take them out and put some thread locker on them. I didn't really want to thread lock them because I was worried when I get to the part where I had to square the frame that I might have to adjust them. And I just didn't want to make that any harder than it needed to be. I need to make room on this table. And then I'll have to move the camera again. Alright, here comes the printer with the panels corrected. I don't know if you guys saw earlier, I put the front panel on the back. That was bad. Okay, there's the beast. Let me get the camera set for you guys. Okay. Not sure which angle would work best. OBS up. So I found that when I cinched up the aluminum when I cinched up the bolts on the aluminum, when I went to undo them later, they did seem like they had a little snap to them, which makes me think I'll get away without the Loctite. And this might just be one of those things where I learned the lesson the hard way. We'll see. Okay. This is probably a great view for you all. Let me see, maybe I can do something creative with this. I do have these little legs that can wrap around. So let's see, maybe actually mount it. Printer mount. I'm going to remove this tape here temporarily so I can mount the carriage. Save this tape. Okay. Is this working at all? And let me check the instructions here. Attach the X carriages to the two MGN carriages using so the M3 8-button heads. The idlers should be towards the right side of your printer. So looking at the front, the idlers should point to the Z-axis. Let me see. So the idlers should point right here. Hopefully that's popping up on screen for you. So put it. So that's going to come in here, and it's a little bit tight. I might have to adjust the 16mm screws. Loosen these up a little bit. Although I am flush, I wonder how that's going to work out. I guess there's a little room. There's a little room for this to go inward. So that was the wrong wrench. Get some button head screws ready. Let's see what the bag. I'm going to put a button head screw in there just to kind of have one there. I should tape that down. Up here. Okay, I have one on that side. I'll put one on this side. Loud noise, I do apologize here. Let me see, get this on screen for you guys. Okay. I don't know if, I don't think I saw anything about any alignment on this particular piece. So Loctite actually says you shouldn't use the product with M3 bolts. I guess they're worried that the bolts are too fragile to handle it. It's interesting. So I'm just making sure everything's tight here. This is one of those things where, hey Shalom, how's it going? I got bit by the live stream bug. Maybe I got bit by the editing sucks bug. That's rough in some spots. I don't know. Maybe it's about being perfectly in sync. Any bit out of sync and it just binds. That sucks. Any little bit out of sync and it's binding. That's going to be fun. Did I lube them? Yes, I did lube them. I had a whole stream on lubing them. I went through, I even rebuilt some, and I showed how to rebuild them on stream, and they were, I guess I would call them passable, but they had some weird, like little catches where they would catch at times. But this seems to be exactly about like the Olympic or something. We'll see. Sounds a little rough in one spot, yeah. I'm thinking maybe I should do the, maybe go to the Masumi's, or I heard some people just buy the high wind carriages for about $30, $36. Yeah, that's all tight right there, and then you can see it let go, and then that's all smooth. And then coming back this way, it's tight. I don't know. I'll throw more lube into it. Okay. That should be okay, I guess. And I have my tape. I'll just put some tape. Well, yeah, that should be fine. I don't think it's going to roll away on me. It's barely rolling. Yours is at 9. I'll try, Sean, but I have plans tonight. I'm sorry. Alright, so the stepper mounts, let's get those mounted. Now you want the M310s. Where are my stepper mounts? I assume that is the right side, left side, what side? It's probably this side. So let me make sure you guys are on screen. Fix your tilt a little bit. Okay, so it looks like the steppers are going to mount somewhat like that. And part of that is making sure that I have the right number of nuts over here. So I have 3. And I need 1 from up here. Okay. I don't know if they have a suggestion on how to do this, but I'm just going to carefully try to line up the 3 nuts simultaneously. Woohoo! What were the odds of hitting all 3 at once? Okay, and then this one I'm going to push into place into the slot there. Another bolt there. Okay. And I want the motor as close to the printer as possible, so I'm pushing the motor in, and then I'll tighten that down a little bit. I think there's motor adjustments later, though. I don't want this too tight. All right. Yep. Just checking the instructions here. And that's pretty much it. That's one motor, and the other motor is going where that camera is. So, time to move the camera. guys seasick yet? Okay, maybe that'll stay. So same thing again, I'm finding 3 of these and 1 of these. Alright. 3 of the M310s in here. And try to line it up with the 3 bolts. I have a feeling this is going to be bad. Alright guys, that's for me that's huge success. And last we line up this one. Grab 1 more of these 10s. Sorry, and I can't see chat from this location, so I do apologize guys. I'll get to the chat in a second. In case somebody said something like Sean told me how disappointed he was with me that I can't make it to a stream. Sure the motor's tight. I sure hope that's the side they go on. Okay. Is that everything? No. No, we have the pulleys too. So. Yeah, we have these carriers. And the carriers come to this other side. So I'll move the camera one more time. You guys are getting a view from all over this printer. And you see how that looks on screen there? Okay, that's not too bad. Let's see, blah, blah, blah. I know you never make it Sunday. Hey, LSX. Thanks for joining the stream. We're almost done here. I just got to figure out where I put these carrier things, these idler things. Put them somewhere. Ah, here they are. Okay, so I'm going to assume they mount. I probably should never assume, but similar to the motors where they have like this little L shape, that seems to say that mounts there and that mounts there. So we'll go with that. And let me see what size screw I need. M310s. So, does it say? Did it say hex? No. Okay. So it's going to be another set of 8 of those M310s. And the first one, I guess it could go out, but it doesn't. Yeah. So the first one, I'll have 1 bolt down here, or yeah, one nut down here. I'll space these out so they kind of line up with the holes. I will go ahead and drop in the 3. I am so surprised this is working like that. I normally can never line up 3 floating bolts. So, made that one too tight. There we go. Slide this bolt into place. Or nut, sorry. Slide that nut into place. And we're about ready to do the other one, and then I'll wrap up the stream for the night. Tomorrow my new camera arrives. Hopefully that gives you guys a much better view. Much clearer view. Ooh, that's interesting. So unlike the motor plate, did that camera just fall a little bit? Yeah, unlike the motor plate, these 10s are too long for this. The 10s, and let me see if they mention that with the aluminum ones. Huh. Hold on, I'm just checking here. Okay, so they do say in another part, when you're building the actual block, they mention that you attach it with 8s and not 10s. But where they talk about attaching it, they don't mention it. So that could be clarified. So let me find the 8s. I'm going to guess that you guys still aren't seeing exactly this, so I'm going to try to improve for you. Okay. So the 10s, once you tighten them down, they end up bottoming out, and you can't fully tighten the piece. So I'm going to try to swap these one at a time, and hopefully my bolts stay or my nuts stay where they need to stay. I like having a printer with a bottom. I can just throw things in there. Come on. Okay. And let's do the front. So I need 3, and I need 1. That's something else that could be improved on the instructions. I think all the instructions were trying to leave 4 extra nuts in the channels, and the printed part I think uses a lot fewer than the aluminum part. Here, let me adjust your camera again. Okay, come on, camera. So the printed part I think uses fewer screws, and because of that you're able to have 4 left in the channel, and because of the way this is configured, it looks like that's not the case. I have 2 left in the channel on the side. Yeah. And over here I have a lot. That's very weird. On the motor side I have a lot. Wow. I am like 4 for 4. checking to make sure everything's tight here. Okay, so I'll try to zoom out. Oh, what's Sean saying now? All right, hot stuff to finish up before stream at 9. Have a good night. Good night, Sean. And something hot stuff. Got stuff. Okay, I'm sure. You're just calling me hot stuff, that's all. All right, so the motors are mounted. What is this? The X carriage is mounted. The mount is there for the extruder. And we have the idlers mounted. So everything's pretty good to go here. This is still kind of like, especially going this direction, it's really tough to pull. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that. And I probably shouldn't contribute to it by putting tape on the actual rail. This tape here. So, all right. So, yeah, that sucks. Let me go to my scene here. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this helps somebody who maybe gets some of these aluminum parts and sees some of the differences that I found with building it. Hopefully, I'm taking notes, so I'm going to give some feedback over to the Railcore people to hopefully maybe either improve the documentation or get myself corrected on something. So, but it's been fun so far, and thank you for watching. Tomorrow I should have a new camera, so it should look better. I'll probably do a little stream in the evening, get the belts in place, and maybe get the Z motors in place. The Z motors look to be a little bit of a pain, but we'll see what happens. So thank you again for watching. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Check out my my website, graybeard3d.com. Right now it has a lot of information about filament. Any kind of color that you would want, you can use it to help you match. So, but again, thank you everyone for watching, and have a good day.